Welcome back to another Zero Context Patreon Stark, advertising my Patreon content one out of context theater moment at a time. I started the month off by finishing Notice, and then jumped into the second book of the Hex Hall series, Demon Glass. I wrapped up the month by starting in on a new mini-romance series, The Bellinger Sisters. The first book is It Happened One Summer. I search for Violet. Her eyes are haunted as she stares straight ahead. She's stiff-shouldered and her skin is pale. What the fuck? I stalk over to her and kneel right in front of her. Her pretty brown eyes are lost. Those plump pink lips are positively kissable, but she's in a zone, trapped in a memory. Therapy, mother. Have you ever heard of it? I also want to shake down every sick who has put his hands on Violet and bring them to me. His eyes widen like her entire life. I growl, here. He clenches his jaw. I have a couple of names right off the top of my head. I'll get you a list starting with our VP, Brent Adams. I want him gone, and the fact that there is a list makes me want to go postal. I see my hands fisting tight. Who Brent Adams anyway? I'm convinced that you could parade every single employee past Gray and he couldn't name a single goddamn one of them besides Jeff and Violet. I was a sniper in the Marine Corps during the Gulf War. RPG nearly got me, I say with a sigh. The explosion did a number on me. It's not so much that I'm against Gray having a background as a soldier or his experience in the war, but aside from a few mentions here and there, it's so fucking insignificant to the overall plot. I kinda wonder why the author even bothered at all. You're gonna carry my kid in your sexy little stomach, aren't you? He demands. Geez, I sure fucking hope not. That sounds medically dangerous. If ectopic pregnancies in the fallopian tubes kill the mother, I can't even imagine what a baby growing in the goddamn stomach would do to a woman. I hate having to bite my tongue, but I can't tell her the truth. I can't let her know that I had Jeff run that article so that Vaughn would come out of his hiding place. Dusty is still trying to find the slippery mother. Using Violet as bait seems like a quickest way to draw him out. It's not that I'm excusing his stalking and literally any other behaviors, but this is where I'm drawing the goddamn line. Like, the dude saw how terrified that Violet was of Vaughn, of how she literally pulled out a gun and was in hysterics when she thought that he was in her apartment, and yet he still chose to do this. What a goddamn piece of There needs to be a hellier version of hell for this guy. This isn't normal, Gray. Nothing about this is normal. We're sick. I'm all for people who have similar kinks coming together and expressing themselves in non-illegal ways, but like, breaking into a woman's house and sleeping under her bed ain't it. That's not a kink. I don't even have proper words to express what it is, but it's messed up. This entire time, the chapters have been titled either Gray or Violet. This one is titled with Gray's military codename/nickname of Hawk. But then again, were you expecting anything less as he storms in to rescue her? Because, Dad said, finally meeting my eyes, you and he are betrothed. I cannot begin to tell you the look of pure and utter disgust that crossed my face when I read that. This world's antiquated rituals to force children to marry each other is only making me side with the Italianite. Jeez, stop. Sophie, it doesn't mean anything, he said, leaning forward and resting his elbows on his knees. It's like a business contract. Didn't anyone explain that to you? Business contracts are for businesses, not fucking flinging your goddamn daughter at a man in order to strengthen your alliance with Poland. Look, I get that living in the regular world for so long gave you major trust issues, but you don't need to keep any more secrets from Miss Castanoff or me. Sweetie, it wasn't the need to hide her powers that gave her trust issues. It was how every single adult in Sophie's life literally lied to her. They're literally still keeping stuff from her. Sophie, I understand your hesitation to embrace your heritage, but it's vital that you stop thinking of demons as monsters. He reached out and covered my hands with his. That you stop thinking of yourself as a monster. Struggling to keep my voice level, I said, Look, I get that you're big into this whole up with demons thing, but I watched one kill a friend, and Miss Kasanoff told me that your mom demoned out and killed your dad, so don't stand there and expect me to believe that being a demon is all sunshine and kittens. Look, neither is being a human when you really stop and think about it. Do I have to trot out Hitler and Genghis Khan? Let me guess, you're joining the legions of people who think that it's a bad idea for me to go through the removal. To my surprise, I saw that angry look across Cal's face again. You say it like everyone is against the idea just to be jerks, but Miss Castanoff, your parents, me, can you blame any of us for not wanting you to die? In general, I'm against people straight up wanting to die for any reason, but at the same time, look me in the eye and tell me that Sophie isn't suffering because of her powers. She's punished for having them. She was almost killed by her great-grandma because of her powers, and to make matters worse, she's slated for a terrible job because of them and is being forced into a relationship with a guy that she met a few months ago, all because of her powers. I know how this story ends because the summary of the third book spoils it, but at the same time, I'm team removal. How can those two be demons? Cal asked, leaning back in his chair. I thought that the ritual had been destroyed after Alice. No, that ritual was destroyed. That doesn't mean that there weren't others out there, or more copies. So James said that demons aren't actual physical bodies, so it stands to reason that both Daisy and Nick were once normal people. They probably had families, or at least somebody who would care enough to report them missing. So why aren't there any reports of missing children that match their descriptions? Cal, I already have to deal with an angry dad today. Please don't pull some macho betrothed thing on top of it, okay? I think that the worst part about the Cal Sophie relationship in this book is that, as far as relationship goes, they have none. Sophie only talked to Cal when there was an emergency. He was literally the groundskeeper and janitor for the school. He's also 3 years older than she is, and right now, she's still underage. This entire relationship is beyond creepy and terrible, and James forcing Sophie into a marriage with Cal is only one part of it. Tremendous power, but no idea how to control it, and the more upset and afraid this makes you, the harder your powers are to handle. He rocked across the room and took my hands. Just like with Daisy and Nick, I can sense his power rolling through his veins. I spent years feeling the same way, Sophie. Really? My voice was barely above a whisper. He nodded. It wasn't so much older than you and my mother. He trailed off. His fingers reflexively tightened on mine. After my father's death, he continued, I would have ripped my powers out with the bare hands if I could have. Like you, I refuse to use magic anymore because it scared me so much. It's not that I hate this father-daughter bonding time. My problem is that if James really wanted Sophie to understand all of this about her powers and to not be afraid of them and to actually be proficient in her powers, he sure never acted like this until she almost died. And then suddenly he cares? I'm not buying his caring dad act because that's all it is. An act. Sophie, I was a jerk to you yesterday. He didn't actually say jerk, but another word that was way more accurate. The first thing that comes to mind is a scene from A Christmas Story where the lug nuts went flying and Ralphie goes, "Oh, fudge," and then the narrator explains, "But I didn't say fudge." That was funny. It was supposed to be funny. These young adult novels who think that teens aren't out there cussing up a storm trying to substitute bull poop and thinking that it's somehow the equivalent of bullshit, I can't take it seriously. It drags the book down and makes the author seem immature. Simply because you are writing for teens does not mean that you have to write like you yourself are 16. My head throbbed, and I practically had to pry my swollen eyes open when my alarm went off, but despite that, I felt better, lighter, as I went down to meet Dad. Yes, it still hurt to think about Archie, but I'd done the right thing. I'd put Don and Jenna and heck pretty much all of Pro Gem Society ahead of what I wanted, and if that wasn't showing leadership ability, I don't know what was. I'm legit surprised. I think that this is literally the first time that the moronic female protagonist didn't run off to be with her boo and screw her consequences. Sophie raises the question of when the page went missing, which James admits is a good question, because if the book went into the case in the 30s or 40s, did somebody else break it out and replace it after ripping out the page, or did it go into the case with the page already turned out? Of course, I wouldn't have had to go to all this trouble if you just met me 3 weeks ago. Do you have any idea what I risked to come here tonight? He is not only from your people, but mine. I don't have a whole lot of sympathy for Archer. He should have taken the hint when she didn't come out to meet him 3 weeks earlier. But then again, if he wanted to be Sophie's boyfriend, he should maybe not join the equivalent of Hitler Youth for Supernaturals. But staring at the wall gave me lots of time to think, mostly about Archer. I'd seen the look on his face right after the explosion had gone off. He'd been scared, shocked even, and not in the whoops, my assassination didn't go off as planned. He hadn't known it was coming, which meant he couldn't have been the one who planted the gift. I don't know who needs to hear this, but if they recruited Archer, then it stands to reason that he's not the only magic user slash supernatural in the group, that they started to recruit others. It's also a possibility that the magic is the result of the Eye's recent partnership with those Irish witch hunters who are all witches themselves. It's not jealousy you're hearing, it's disgust. You dated a girl you didn't even like just to get information out of her. Honestly, in the grand scheme of the acts that the Italian Eye has committed, fake dating a girl to determine if she raised a demon or not ranks pretty low. Why is it, I said against his lips several minutes later, that we're always kissing in gross, dirty places like cellars and abandoned mills? He laughed, pressing kisses to my jaw and then my neck. Next time, it'll be in a castle, I promise. This is England, after all. Can't be too hard to find one. Now, having been in a few castles in England, I can assure you that most of them are as dirty and ruined as the old corn mill. The ones that are in good condition are still being used as actual houses and are tourist spots. I thought about asking them at dinner, quietly and hopefully somewhere in private, if either of them had any weird memories that might correspond to what I'd seen in Hecate, but they didn't show up in the dining room that night. I am once again reminding the readers that somebody out there is missing these children. Yes, Archer did say that he visited Shasta and Anna's families, and both sets of parents were under some kind of heavy enchantment and thought that they were getting calls from their daughters. But there are other family members other than the parents. No aunts or uncles who are worried about the missing children, no second cousins once removed, no siblings, nothing. It's even weirder when you remember that Archer said, what, a couple dozen children had gone missing from the school. Literally none of them have extended family who care enough about them to file a missing persons report. I never meant to hurt you, Cal. I don't have an ounce of sympathy for Cal in the entire Sophie-Cal relationship here. He knew who Sophie was, and he knew that she had no idea about their betrothal. That she barely even knew that betrothing children was something that witches did. It's obvious that he was trying to get attached to Sophie, even when it was painfully obvious that Sophie had next to no interest in him romantically. So yeah, zero sympathy, dude. You hurt your own feelings here. You told me that she had attempted to communicate with you at Hecate. Is this true? I could feel every eye in the room on me, even Archer's. Yes. I love how their investigation into things is asking like 3 questions, determining that she's evil and saying that they're going to strip her powers. Court, jury of her peers, a lawyer, due process. None of those things mean anything to this kangaroo court. They probably decided last night that this was how things were going to go. Anything Sophie or Archer or James said was not going to matter. You and your father were meant to protect us, yet you both seem to prefer the company of your enemies. That's not what— Wait, what do you mean both? Since when is Dad all cozy with the Eye, or the Brannocks for that matter? She shook her head and continued walking upstairs. It's of no concern anymore. Let me guess, Grace is secretly a member of the Brannocks or something. Is Mommy Dearest going to come crashing through the door to save her daughter? 1 chapter later. Go to the Itinerants and tell it you want to go to Aslan Brannock. That should be enough to get you there, or at least close enough. If he had told me to climb around the back of the mill and go to Narnia, I'm not sure I could have been more shocked. What? I shouted over the roar of the flames. Why would I go there? Because that's where your mother is, he said, his gaze boring into mine. Did I call it, or what? She didn't need tape from Milan to hold up her tits. They were light and springy with nipples that reminded Piper of the bottom of an ice cream cone. I had to read this, and so do you. What am I supposed to do? Like, fish for a living? I don't even know how to make toast. That is 100% on the parents, and I honestly feel so sorry for Piper. Yes, she's a spoiled heiress with more money than any of us could ever imagine, but at the same time, she's admitting that she literally has 0 skills. And, like, whose fault do you think that is? Because Hannah didn't turn out like this. What do I do with that? Put a little olive oil in the pan, brown it up, add some onions, mushrooms if you want. When it's all cooked, add the sauce, put it over pasta. Not like Brendan knows about Piper's inability to make toast, but like that's awfully complex for a girl who doesn't know how to make toast. And steel wool to block the mouse holes, all 8 of them. When they drug the bunk bed away from the wall, the paneling running along the bottom had resembled Swiss cheese. I'm all for Piper learning a lesson and figuring out how to be a better person, but that is a health hazard and should probably be torn down. I'm honestly surprised that the health department hasn't realized that it's been operational this entire time and condemned the building. If you like my content, you can become a member on Patreon. You can now join for free and get access to all of my free content. For only $1 a month, you can have access to so much, including the context for all of this month's commentary and more. I'll see you next month, guys.